Now, an ex-royal staff member has opened up about his time working at Buckingham Palace. Dan Ottaway, who served as a chef, claims that out of all of the royals that he catered for, Prince Andrew
Behind the sealed doors of royal residences, routines continue quietly until someone who saw everything finally chooses to speak. A former maid to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has ended years of silence by recounting moments the public never witnessed and habits no court circular ever documented. Her account is not rumor. It is first-hand closeness, long hours, and impressions formed within private spaces. As murmurs turn into testimony, the image becomes more complex, unsettling, and deeply human. So, what did she observe day after day? And why has she chosen this moment to finally speak out? The world the public never saw. From the outside, Buckingham Palace has always appeared untouchable. Shining golden gates, carefully polished facades, royals waving together, and centuries of tradition presented like a perfect performance. To the public, it is a place of ceremony, grandeur, and precise order, where every detail appears flawlessly choreographed. But behind those impressive walls, far from public view, a very different reality existed. A world not of dazzling receptions or formal state dinners, but of quiet, uncelebrated work. It was a place filled with chefs, housekeepers, valets, guards, and personal aides. The people who kept the engine of royal life running smoothly while remaining mostly outside the spotlight. They were the unseen cogs that made the palace function, vital yet rarely acknowledged. Among these overlooked figures was Dan Ottaway, a former royal chef who spent years preparing meals for several members of the royal family. When he eventually decided to share his experiences, his testimony carried weight because it was calm, balanced, and consistent with rumors that had circulated quietly for years. Ottaway's accounts were not exaggerated. They were rooted in everyday observation. Of all the royals he served, he described Prince Andrew as the most difficult to work with. It was not a matter of schedule or responsibility. It was not about workload or demanding duties. Andrew, Ottaway explained, was challenging because he was difficult to satisfy, sharp in tone, and notably lacking in consideration. What makes Ottaway's memories especially striking is not just his portrayal of Andrew. It is the contrast he drew with others. He spoke warmly of Princess Catherine, recalling how she would personally thank staff and even bring her children to greet them after meals. Such gestures, he noted, left a lasting impact, remaining in the memories of those who served her long after royal titles and public appearances faded. It became evident that behavior inside the palace was far from consistent. It could be warm and sincere in some cases and cold or dismissive in others. Andrew, Ottaway suggested, occupied a distinct position within this range. For decades, staff quietly shared their experiences, exchanging complaints or small acts of kindness among themselves, but rarely with reporters or outsiders. The palace hierarchy turned discretion into a virtue and silence into an expectation. Loyalty was rewarded. Speaking out carried consequences. Housing, pensions, employment, and even personal identity were tied to compliance. In such a setting, troubling behavior could be ignored, normalized, or quietly endured simply because raising concerns came at too high a cost. A silent culture of endurance took hold, shaping habits that lasted for years. Andrew, often believed to be the Queen's favorite, appeared to enjoy freedoms others could only imagine. His moods were unpredictable, yet seldom challenged. Cutting remarks were frequently excused, and rules that applied strictly to others were sometimes bent or overlooked when it came to him. Those who worked near him quickly learned a harsh reality. Challenging a prince was a risk few could afford. One mistake could threaten not only careers, but financial security and personal stability. This fragile balance allowed even the most difficult behaviors to continue unchecked, concealed behind a facade of royal tradition and unspoken obligation. Over time, staff adapted, learning to navigate a world where power and privilege created invisible protection, and silence became the safest option in a palace full of secrets. In this environment, Where protocol and appearances ruled, Buckingham Palace's public image was carefully preserved. But for those who lived and worked inside, the truth was far more complicated. A fragile balance of service, fear, appreciation, and quiet endurance. And within that balance, Andrew's presence left an impression many remembered long after formal duties ended. Was this former Maid the only witness to Andrew's troubling behavior? Do other royal staff have positive things to say about him? Let's examine reports from additional palace employees. A royal without restraint, Prince Andrew, according to numerous staff accounts, repeatedly displayed a disturbing pattern of behavior, intimidating, belittling, and dominating those around him. While royals appear polished in public, staff describe a much darker reality behind closed doors. As detailed in Tom Quinn's Gilded Youth, those who worked closely with the Duke of York described him as sharp-tongued, dismissive, and disrespectful, often treating employees as invisible or beneath him. One former staffer compared his behavior to a medieval mindset where obedience outweighed dignity, making the workplace feel less like modern employment and more like servitude. These memories reveal a pattern of humiliation and fear, showing how Andrew's private conduct sharply contrasted with his public image. What makes these accounts especially chilling is not only the behavior itself, but the absence of consequences. Again and again, staff reportedly raised concerns, exchanged quiet warnings, or shared knowing looks about Andrew's conduct, yet nothing changed. The warnings were whispered, complaints were quietly logged, and still, according to insiders, he faced little to no accountability. The power imbalance was immense. Speaking out was not just difficult. It could be dangerous. A single complaint could cost someone their job, damage their references, or end any chance of future royal employment. For many, silence felt like the only safe option. They watched, worried, and endured, aware that honesty carried far greater risk than staying quiet. In this atmosphere, fear of retaliation overshadowed justice, allowing misconduct to continue unchallenged and unseen. As Prince Andrew's public reputation began to unravel in 2022, more voices from within the palace finally came forward. Paul Page, a former royal protection officer, shared his experiences publicly. He confirmed there were genuine incidents of Andrew being aggressive and verbally abusive. This was not an isolated loss of temper, Page suggested, but a recurring pattern. His testimony reinforced what palace aides had been quietly saying for years. Another former bodyguard, Ken Worf, echoed these claims. Speaking to royal biographer Nigel Cawthorne, Worf was blunt. He described Andrew's manners as completely unacceptable. For someone raised in privilege and trained in royal protocol, such conduct shocked many. Courtesy and restraint are expected pillars of royal behavior. Yet Andrew, according to those around him, often ignored these principles when dealing with staff. Some accounts go even further. One palace insider described incidents where Andrew would intentionally throw objects on the floor and yell at aides to retrieve them using harsh and vulgar language. The act itself was humiliating, but the delivery made it worse. It was not about efficiency. It was about authority, dominance, and making others feel small. For staff whose roles depended on pleasing superiors, such moments were deeply distressing. Even more troubling stories appear in Quinn's later book, Yes, Ma'am: The Secret Life of Royal Servants. Former employees described incidents that seemed cruel and petty beyond belief. In one case, a staff member was allegedly dismissed simply because Andrew disliked a mole on the person's face, viewing it as unsuitable for royal surroundings. There was no suggestion of poor performance, only a physical trait that offended the prince's personal taste. In another case, a staffer reportedly lost his job for wearing a nylon tie. This minor wardrobe choice, something most people would overlook, was apparently enough to end a career. To outsiders, these reasons sound unbelievable. To those inside the palace, they served as constant reminders that working for Andrew meant walking on eggshells every day. Taken together, these accounts paint a troubling picture. They suggest not merely poor manners, but a consistent lack of basic human respect. For many palace employees, the experience left deep emotional wounds. They entered royal service expecting professionalism and honor, only to encounter fear and humiliation. While some may argue these stories are one-sided, the sheer volume of similar accounts from different individuals in different roles makes them difficult to ignore. Whether or not Andrew ever faced formal consequences, the testimonies illustrate how unchecked power can shape behavior and how cruelty can remain hidden behind palace walls. Clear examples. Rather than a close and affectionate bond between siblings, their early years were reportedly defined by strain. Andrew, being older and more forceful, was said to dominate Edward, often using his size and position to intimidate him. Instead of guiding or protecting his younger brother, Andrew allegedly took satisfaction in asserting dominance, turning ordinary moments into opportunities to win or embarrass. In her book Royal Children, well-known royal author Ingrid Seward painted a detailed picture of life between the two brothers. She wrote that Andrew had a pattern of bullying not only Edward, but nearly anyone around him. According to Seward, if Edward reached for something he enjoyed, something as small and harmless as a piece of cake, Andrew would rush to grab it first, simply to deny his brother that pleasure. These minor but repeated actions, Seward suggested, revealed a competitive and cruel streak that Andrew carried with him as a child. Seward's observations were later reinforced by another royal biographer, Nigel Cawthorne, who supported these claims in an excerpt published by the Daily Mail. Cawthorne described young Andrew as a child who tested the patience of palace staff from a very early age. Far from being easygoing or gentle, he was reportedly demanding, stubborn, and quick-tempered. Those responsible for his care struggled to manage his conduct, which often crossed the boundary from simple mischief into outright defiance. One of the most revealing details in Cawthorne's account came from Andrew's nanny, Mabel Anderson. She reportedly gave him the nickname Baby Grumpling, a label that reflected his frequent tantrums and refusal to accept boundaries. According to these accounts, Andrew did not respond well to being told no. And when things failed to go his way, he reacted with sulking or anger rather than understanding. Cawthorne also suggested that Andrew's behavior may have been influenced by the special treatment he received from Queen Elizabeth II. As her second son, Andrew was widely believed to be a favorite, and palace insiders long hinted that he was indulged more than his siblings. By the time he reached the age of 8 and was sent to preparatory school, this sense of favoritism may have hardened into entitlement. Cawthorne claimed that Andrew carried a visible chip on his shoulder, acting as though rules applied to others, but not to him. At school, these traits reportedly followed him. Rather than blending in or learning humility, Andrew was said to bully classmates, using cutting remarks and mocking laughter to unsettle those around him. His behavior earned him an unflattering nickname, the Snigger. This name reportedly came from his habit of making crude jokes and laughing at inappropriate moments, often at the expense of others. By the time Andrew finally left the school, Cawthorne noted that staff felt more relief than sadness at his departure. According to him, teachers and caregivers were worn down by years of difficult behavior and constant challenges to authority. Their collective sigh of relief spoke volumes about the impact Andrew's presence had left behind. Taken together, these accounts from royal biographers paint a picture of a young prince whose troubling traits were visible long before adulthood. While public life later demanded discipline and charm, writers suggest that the seeds of later controversy were planted early, hidden behind palace walls where few were watching closely. While palace staff have offered negative assessments of him, what kind of reputation did he hold beyond the household? Was the version of Prince Andrew seen outside different from the one known within palace walls? Let's explore the details of Prince Andrew's private life. A royal reputation unraveled. Over the years, many individuals who passed through the gates of Buckingham Palace, staff members, aides, and security officers alike, have quietly shared stories with royal biographers and journalists about what life behind the palace walls was truly like. Among the most frequently repeated claims was one particular observation. Prince Andrew, they said, had a strong appetite for female company. According to these insiders, he enjoyed socializing, flirting, and forming close relationships, often far more enthusiastically than his royal role might have implied. These accounts have taken on renewed importance in light of Prince Andrew's repeated denials of any knowledge or involvement in the crimes of the late Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted offender whose name became synonymous with scandal and abuse. To many observers, the prince's insistence that he was unaware of Epstein's behavior has felt difficult to accept, especially when viewed alongside a long-standing reputation for indulgence and excess. The contrast between Andrew's public denials and the private recollections of those who once worked near him has fueled doubt and suspicion, making his version of events appear increasingly fragile. The Epstein controversy dominated headlines for years and inspired multiple documentaries examining Andrew's fall from royal favor. One of the most widely discussed productions was a Peacock documentary titled Prince Andrew Banished. The film presented a deeply unflattering portrayal of the Duke, weaving together testimonies from former insiders, journalists, and royal commentators to explore how a once prominent prince became sidelined from public life. Among those featured was Paul Page, a former royal protection officer who shared a striking recollection. Speaking candidly, Page described how Andrew's personal life had become something of an open secret among palace staff. He recalled that there was once an ongoing joke about the prince's bedroom door resembling a revolving entrance. According to Page, women came and went so frequently that it barely caused surprise anymore. As he put it, it seemed that every other day a new visitor appeared, and rarely was it the same person twice. His remarks suggested not casual flirtation, but a consistent pattern that staff quietly noticed and discussed among themselves. Journalist Helen Kerwin-Taylor echoed these claims, reinforcing the idea that Andrew's romantic pursuits were anything but discreet. Her assessment was blunt, describing the prince as someone who lacked restraint when it came to his desires. In her view, his behavior was not subtle or reserved, but obvious enough to draw attention and commentary from those observing him closely. The documentary continued with further insight. Royal author and correspondent Phil Dampier added another dimension, offering a comparison that made Andrew's situation even more striking. Dampier noted that unlike some other royals who struggled with alcohol or substance abuse, Andrew appeared to avoid those issues. However, he argued that the prince had a different weakness, one that proved just as destructive. According to Dampier, Andrew's true vulnerability lay in unchecked indulgence, and it was this lack of restraint that repeatedly placed him in compromising situations and ultimately contributed to his public disgrace. While criticism surrounding Prince Andrew has been intense, one individual appeared consistently willing to dismiss or overlook the growing list of allegations: his former wife, Sarah Ferguson. As media scrutiny intensified and Andrew's association with Jeffrey Epstein came under fierce examination, Ferguson remained publicly supportive. Appearing on the television program Lorraine, she spoke warmly and confidently about the man she once married. In her view, Andrew was not the villain many portrayed him to be. She described him as a kind and gentle man, highlighting his warmth and praising him as a devoted father. Her defense stood in sharp contrast to the harsh judgments dominating headlines and documentaries. To critics, it sounded like denial or misplaced loyalty. To supporters, it reflected a personal truth shaped by years of shared history. Either way, her comments added another layer of complexity to an already tangled narrative marked by scandal, contradiction, and unanswered questions. Taken together, these accounts form a troubling yet compelling portrait of Prince Andrew, a man whose private reputation clashed sharply with his public role and whose alleged conduct continues to cast a long shadow over the royal family. Whether viewed through insider testimony, investigative journalism, or personal loyalty, the story remains deeply gripping and far from forgotten. But who is Jeffrey Epstein? What connection did he have with Prince Andrew? What benefits and consequences did that relationship bring to Andrew's reputation? Let's examine the details of Prince Andrew's long association with Jeffrey Epstein. The royal scandal. Among the many controversial relationships linked to the Duke of York, none has cast a longer or darker shadow than his connection with the American financier Jeffrey Epstein. Of all Prince Andrew's questionable friendships, this one stands apart as the most disturbing. Not only because of who Epstein was later revealed to be, but because of how long the association endured and how many warning signs appeared along the way. Prince Andrew has consistently stated that he first met Epstein in 1999. According to his account, the introduction was made through Ghislaine Maxwell, a well-known British socialite and Epstein's former girlfriend. At the time, Maxwell moved easily within elite circles, socializing with royalty, politicians, and wealthy businessmen. Years later, she would be accused of assisting Epstein in recruiting, trafficking, and abusing young girls, placing her at the center of one of the most shocking scandals of modern times. A Channel 4 Dispatches investigation later revealed the extent of Andrew's relationship with Epstein. Over roughly 12 years, the two men reportedly met around 10 times. These meetings were not casual or public. They took place at Epstein's private properties in New York, Palm Beach, and the Virgin Islands. These locations, later identified by victims as central to Epstein's abuse, became symbols of secrecy, excess, and exploitation. It could be argued that early on, Prince Andrew may not have known the full truth about Epstein's conduct. Many powerful figures claimed ignorance before the financier's crimes became widely known. However, that defense became much harder to maintain after Epstein's first criminal conviction. In 2008, Epstein served 13 months in custody after pleading guilty to charges involving an underage girl. Despite this, photographs later surfaced showing Prince Andrew walking with Epstein in New York in 2010, 2 years after the conviction. The images caused widespread outrage. This moment marked a turning point. Under mounting public pressure, the Duke of York stepped down from his role as the United Kingdom's trade envoy, raising an obvious question. Why would a senior royal continue to associate publicly with a convicted offender? Further allegations soon deepened the controversy. In 2011, Juan Alessi, a former employee at Epstein's Palm Beach estate, claimed that Prince Andrew attended poolside gatherings where guests were naked and young girls provided massages. Alessi described an environment that mirrored other accounts of Epstein's properties, places where boundaries were blurred and exploitation was concealed behind wealth and privilege. That same year, the name Virginia Giuffre, formerly Virginia Roberts, began appearing more prominently in media reports. Giuffre alleged that in 2001, when she was 17 years old, she was flown to London to meet Prince Andrew while working for Epstein as what she described as an erotic masseuse. Later, in court documents filed in Florida in 2015, she went further, claiming she had been forced to have sexual contact with the Duke of York. At the time of the alleged encounter, she was below the legal age of consent in Florida. Prince Andrew strongly rejected these allegations. The specific claims involving him were later removed from U.S. civil court records following a federal judge's ruling, though this did not mean the accusations were proven false. Instead, they were dismissed on procedural grounds, leaving public opinion sharply divided and many questions unanswered. The story did not stop there. In 2019, newly released legal filings brought fresh accusations into focus. Johanna Schoberg, another woman who said she was abused by Epstein, alleged that Prince Andrew groped her at Epstein's Manhattan apartment in 2001. She also claimed that Virginia was present at the time. Once again, Andrew denied any misconduct. Later that year, Epstein was arrested and formally charged. In August 2019, he was found dead in his jail cell in what authorities ruled an apparent suicide. His death stunned the world and reignited scrutiny of everyone connected to him. In the aftermath, more allegations emerged. David Rogers, a former pilot who flew Epstein's private jet, claimed that Prince Andrew traveled on the aircraft with Epstein and Virginia Giuffre on at least 3 occasions in 2001. Taken together, these accounts painted a deeply disturbing picture. While Prince Andrew has repeatedly denied all accusations, the sheer number of claims, the length of his association with Epstein, and the timing of his continued contact, even after Epstein's criminal conviction, have left a lasting mark on his reputation. For many, the unresolved questions surrounding this relationship remain as troubling as the allegations themselves, serving as a stark reminder of how power, privilege, and silence can intersect in deeply unsettling ways. So, what do you think about Andrew's true behavior? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.